In celebrating the Workers' Day, we're also celebrating 100 years of Nelson Mandela and the restoration of workers' rights to dignity through national minimum wage. To be a worker in a ruthless capitalist economy here in South Africa and anywhere in the world, and in particular to be a black worker, is to defy death on a daily basis. To be a black worker, you cannot choose between being alive and proud or be dead or not care, because you are bound to death as long as you are dehumanized, treated as an object, and paid a normalized slave wage. To defy death on a daily basis is only to postpone what cannot be avoided, as all workers are death-bound subject of capitalism. Nelson Mandela and his fearless generation of outstanding Pan-Africanists understood these relations between workers, death and exploitation as the reason for brutal land dispossession of black people, to force millions over many generations into slave wage, work in mines, farms, factories, and white people's kitchens, leaving women and children landless, homeless, workless, and with no income to sustain and build decent lives, which is why we cannot separate the indignity of black workers from poor black women, children, and people living with disability. The murderous, sexist, criminal, and exploitative capitalist economy did not allow workers their humanity and dignity. Celebrating 100 years of Nelson Mandela, his legacy, and his call for our generation to rebuild a truly equal society in which we live, humanized black workers, requires true commitment to uplift workers from poverty, slave wage, and indignity. The introduction of a national minimum wage must go beyond the narrow purpose of establishing a minimum floor wage below which no worker must be paid. The motivation for such a socio-economic policy instrument must be understood in a context of more than 100 years institutionalized slave wages, which have condemned black workers and their families to abject poverty and unimaginable misery. First and foremost, the underlying motivation for a national minimum wage is to reclaim black workers' dignity as a human being and then as a worker. Secondly, a national minimum wage must deal with the legacy of apartheid, a structural economic crisis responsible for budget cuts, high interest rates, rising inequality and poverty. 20 rands per hour proposed national minimum wage is a spit in the face of workers by the ANC government and must be rejected. The EFF calls for land expropriation. Thank you.
Honorable Mgwezi.
Zolilwela, Izwela, Zolilwela, Izwela, Zolilwela, Izwela, 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 Izwela,